So I'm sure you're aware, but we're still in PowerPoint.
Yes.
Great. Good, good. Hello, if you're just tuning in with us, we're just getting set up for tonight's performance. Join us at 8:20 this evening for BS. This is just our setup procedure. Thank you. And we went back into PowerPoint.
Really?
I'm pretty sure.
Why did we do that?
I see PowerPoint. Yeah, there we go. Okay, I'll be back in just 1 second. I want to check something.
Okay.
If you connect, please tell me. Hey, Joe. We're not seeing it on Facebook Live. So could you please check public, private, all that stuff?
Yeah, and actually, I'm seeing it on my Facebook Live.
Okay, let me try something else. Oh, there we go. Let's see. Okay, so yes, I see it. So let me try one more thing. Is that it? Okay, good. I think we're good.
Okay.
So if you're just tuning in, this is a technical setup for our presentation tonight at 8:20 of BS. So join us back here on Facebook Live for this free presentation at 8:20. This is just a technical setup. Thanks. Okay, Joe, I will see you at 7:10.
7:10, about an hour. Okay.
Hey, Joe.
Hey, John.
Hey, just checking in. So can you make my screen big, please? Thank you. And I just want to do a quick sound check. Okay. Test, test.
Sounds good.
Okay. Test, test.
Sounds good.
Okay. Test, test.
Sounds good.
Okay, good. Thank you. And let's do this. Okay. Test, test.
Sounds good.
Okay. Test, test.
Sounds good.
You hear this?
I hear the tap.
Okay, good. Great. And lighting looks okay?
Looks good.
Okay, great. Okay, great. Then I will see you around 8.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you. We'll begin after 8 o'clock. So thank you for joining us, everybody. Yay. Hey, Joe.
Hey
Hey,
there.
Joe. Yeah,
Yep.
I just wanted to check in, check my sound.
Sound is good.
Okay, let me just do this. Test, test.
Sounds good.
Great. And test, test.
Sounds good.
Okay, good. Test, test.
Sounds good.
Okay, great. And then let me just try a couple more things. This over here. Test, test.
Sounds good.
Okay. Test, test.
Sounds good.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. We are going to begin in just a few minutes. Thank you for being here for BS. I'll be back with you in just a few. Thanks. Bye. Oh, 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 oh. Just a couple of weeks ago, my wonderful husband took me on a great hike I'd never been on. It was from the town of Fairfax all the way to the town where I grew up, Ross, California, specifically to Phoenix Lake. It was a wonderful hike. It was so exciting to be on this hike I'd never been on. And then this week, I was preparing this piece, getting ready to talk about the Boy Scouts, and I realized I had been on that hike. I had hiked from Mount Tamarancho, Camp Tamarancho in Fairfax, all the way back to San Anselmo. I'd hiked back to my town, to Ross, the whole way back when I was a scout, when I was 11 years old, and I was a Boy Scout. Be prepared. Actually, this isn't how I looked. I mean, I had the bandana and the shirt and everything, but I didn't have the hat. And I wasn't this peppy usually as a Boy Scout. I was more like this. You see, I was like this tiny 11-year-old. I was micro small. And my backpack actually on me was like this. It was this gigantic metal backpack that pulled me back. And I was always struggling on the hikes. They really took it out of me. I kept going, but it was really, really tough. Let's be frank. 11 years old, it wasn't a very good year for me. It just wasn't. At home, there were problems. My older brother and I, we were pretty much at each other all the time. This was me and my older brother back when I was 11. You're stupid. No, 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 you're stupid. Fortunately, my relationship with my little brother was a little bit better. This is it. You're dumb. No, you're dumb. No, you're dumb. You're dumb. You're dumb. You're dumb. Fortunately, my mother was there to take care of everything. Boys, stop it. Now stop it, boys. Come on, now stop. Stop all this. Stop it. That's it. Now stop. Now, everybody go upstairs to bed, okay? I want you all to go up to bed. Okay, just go up to bed. I'll be up in a minute. I'll come in and tuck you in, cute boys. I'll sing show tunes to you. Yeah, I'll be up. Just run on upstairs. Yeah. You see, things weren't too happy with my mom and dad. I don't know what was going on, but he was never around. I mean, he lived with us, of course, but he always came home at 2 a.m. And then he got up at 6 and left for work. I don't know when he slept. It was crazy. So there was all this weird tension at home. And then I went into the 6th grade. And 6th grade for me was really tough. You see, I've been a popular kid up until the 5th grade. I was a good athlete. I was a good intellectual, smart kid. But then in 6th grade, everything got so factionalized. You had to be an athlete or you had to be an intellectual. You couldn't be both. And I didn't fit in anywhere. I mean, I wasn't a super athlete. I wasn't a super intellectual. And so I was just kind of lonely. I don't know what changed. Me? School? Home life? What came first? The chicken or the egg or the nest? I don't know, but everything was different. My teacher that year was Mr. Schall. I'd had him as a 2nd grade teacher. In 2nd grade, he was like this. He'd been in the Air Force and he always wore his watch upside down. So he was always doing this. And he was famous for throwing erasers at loud, obnoxious boys. Shut up, boom, all year long. Shut up, boom, shut up, boom. It was incredible. He threw these long
erasers off the blackboard. Boom, 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 boom. It was incredible. I couldn't believe it. One day I was sitting next to this kid who was mouthing off, and then all of a sudden behind his head on the wall, explosion, a whole bunch of eraser dust. The kid had ducked and almost been hit by this huge eraser that Mr. Shull had thrown. It was incredible. Well, somebody had talked to him about that because by the time I had him as my 6th grade teacher, he'd stopped throwing erasers. But this is what he did instead. Shut up! Shut up! Shut up! It was incredible. Now, Mr. Shull hated one kind of person, boys who were thuggish, loutish, lunks, stupid. He hated them. And of course, they weren't stupid. They were lazy. They drove him crazy. So if you weren't one of those kinds of boys, he didn't notice you. So all the girls and me, he just didn't even notice. It was like we weren't even there. And that was my 6th grade. I felt so absent, so isolated. And then Boy Scouts came to town. It was amazing. I went to the first Boy Scout meeting. I mean, we never had a Boy Scout troop in Ross before. I went to the Episcopal Church, which is where we worshiped, right? We went there on Sundays, and they were the sponsors of the new Boy Scout troop. Unfortunately, the Scoutmaster was Don Keidel. Now, my best friend was Don Keidel's son, Jan Keidel. We had the best time together. We were always playing and making up stories and playing war and everything. But when Don was around, he and his wife, Julie, they just made everybody work. They were always like making the kids like retile the roof or lay a new foundation or put a whole new wing on the house. It was incredible. It was always working. And they had this beautiful A-frame playhouse. I loved hanging out in it with Jan. But then Don one day decided to turn it into a chicken coop in Ross, this Tony suburb with this chicken coop and chickens going off at 4:30. Quack, quack, quack. It was crazy. And I was there like fooling around. And Don came up to me and he said, John, you're welcome to stay. But if you stay, you have to work. If you want to play, you're going to have to go home. Why on earth would I work for Don Keidel? I wasn't going to work for him. I had my own house, my own daddy, my own mommy. I was going to. So I left. So I hadn't had very good experiences of Don Keidel. I kind of sat there with my mommy, listening, kind of scared about what was going to happen. But then Don got up there and he was very casual and he said, welcome everybody to the Ross Boy Scouts. I'm glad there's so many people here today. Welcome to the mothers, a special welcome. My name's Don Keidel. Many of you know me. I am an Eagle Scout. And scouting is one of the most wonderful things in the world. And we're embarking on a terrific adventure today. Now, our first scouting outing is going to be this Sunday at Camp Tamarancho in Fairfax. And I want all the boys to bring their fathers because we're going to have a Father and Sunday. So talk to your fathers tonight because Sunday is our first scouting event. Now, I want to get everybody set up with uniforms and the Boy Scout handbook. I hope the mothers brought their checkbooks with them. Like I said, you should. Everybody should go over and see Mr. Rosen. Mr. Rosen's going to set you up. Now, you don't need a full uniform. All you need is the tunic and the bandana and the clasp. Okay, that's all we need to start out with. And of course, the Boy Scout handbook. Everything you need to know about scouting, everything you need to know about anything is in the Boy Scout handbook. So everybody, let's go see Mr. Rosen. So we all went over and saw Mr. Rosen and my mommy handed over a check and I got myself a tunic, bandana, clasp. She said, oh, Jono, you look so handsome. Jono, I just think you look adorable as a Boy Scout. Come on, let's get home. The problem was I couldn't ask my father to go on the Sunday outing at Camp Tamarancho because he wasn't around. I mean, he didn't get home until 2. It wasn't until Saturday that I actually went into my parents' bedroom and he was laying on the bed and I was able to ask him. He was watching the football game. Oh, come on, throw the ball. Throw it. What are you doing, you idiot? What a load of malarkey. Throw the ball. Jesus Christ. Oh, hey, Jono, how are you? Come on in here. What's up? Hi, Daddy. I just wanted to ask if, you could go with me tomorrow to the Boy Scouts father-son thing. It's tomorrow on Sunday. Oh, sure, Jono, I'd love to. Yeah, that sounds like fun. Okay, let's do that. Oh, throw the ball. What are you, a moron? Pick it. Wait, what are you doing? Don't run with it. Throw it. Jesus Christ. So on Sunday, We got into my father's car. He had the best car in Ross. It was a little green Porsche Roadster. He used to drive it like this, one arm, right, on the windowsill, and he'd be smoking with the other hand, listening to the radio as he drove. Don't throw the ball. Come on and throw the damn ball. See, my father never steered. Well, he used his knees to steer. He used to steer like this. It was great. We were headed up to Camp Tamarancho. We drove up to the top of this tall hill in Fairfax, and there it was. Camp Tamarancho. It was so beautiful. It was like I imagined Scotland would be. Beautiful rolling hills covered with green and heather and soaring redwood trees. That was the California unique thing. And chaparral everywhere. And above us, clouds breaking above us. And we played Capture the Flag. It was great. It was the sons versus the fathers. And I was running all over Camp Tamarancho. I had the best time. I was tearing about Camp Tamarancho. It was great. And when the fathers were all racing towards us to get our flag, we all hid in a declivity down low. And as the fathers came towards us, we jumped up and tagged all the fathers and captured them and put them in jail. And then we ran over and got their flag. It was the best day. I had so much fun. I loved hanging out with my daddy. And he was good about that. I mean, if you asked him to do something, he did it. He wasn't always around, but when you asked him, he was there. And then he drove me home in his Porsche. I was so proud of him with the coolest car there. Arm on the windshield, smoking, steering with his knees, listening to the game. Oh, throw it. So, Jono, did you have a good time? Oh, yeah, it was great. That was the best time ever. Daddy, I loved it. When we all hid in the declivity and then we popped up and then we tagged all of you, that was so incredible. It was scrumptious. It was delicious. It was great, Daddy. It was great. Declivity? My goodness. You sound like me. You should be an attorney. That's like a lawyer word. Use that in court. Would you throw it? Just throw, oh, for God's sake, throw the ball. So that was my outing with my daddy. Meanwhile, back at school, I was supposed to give a presentation in Mr. Schall's class. Now, the presentation was supposed to be, we had to show the class how to make something that we were really good at doing, right? So I chose to show the class how to make paper airplanes because I made them all the time with my older brother and I'd gotten really good at it. So I was all set for my presentation on Monday morning. I went in, I had all my paper, all my designs, and this was my presentation. So you take a piece of paper and you like fold it like this in half, right? And then you want to make like a triangle, right? At the top of the paper, it's like this, right? Yeah. Okay, and then you fold against the fold like that, right? Okay, and then I'm gonna like fold it over and do this. So I'm gonna fold it once like that. So you see I did that, and then I'm gonna fold it again like that, and like that, right? It's pretty difficult, but you can do it. And then so you've got the airplane, then you can like throw it, and it's how to make a paper airplane. That's my presentation. Well, after all the presentations were done, we had to meet individually with Mr. Schall outside the room so he could give us some feedback. This was his feedback. Okay, good. That was good. Very good, very interesting. Here's the thing. You just used binder paper. You should have used real paper, like high quality paper, something artistic, something nice. Also, you never looked at us. You always looked down. You got to look at the audience. Look at the audience. Finally, you got to engage us. You got to make us excited about what you're doing. Does that make sense? Think of Pamela Paletti's presentation. Remember hers? She showed us how to make rock fudge, and she was very specific about it, and she had a lot of enthusiasm. And she told us, don't use too much baking soda. That makes them too light. Don't use too little baking soda. That makes them too heavy. You want to make them just perfect. And she had a big smile on her face and she looked at all of us and she handed out, right? She handed out rock fudge, Pamela's rock fudge at the end. See how happy that made everybody? You got to get the audience involved. Okay? Does that make sense, John? Yeah, it made sense. He was saying that my presentation was boring. Yeah, I got it. Jeez. Pamela Paletti, she was like Miss Perfect. I was so sick of Pamela Paletti and her rock fudge. Oh my God. But it was the first time he paid attention to me, specifically to me. And I thought, wow, he really watched my presentation and he gave me feedback. So the next presentation was supposed to be sell something. We were supposed to like think up a product and sell it. All right, I'd have to get my thoughts around that one. The next scout meeting we went to, they told us about an overnight we were going to go on. And then 2 weeks later, we went to a gathering of everybody in preparation for the overnight. Well, I wasn't ready. I don't know why, but I wasn't. And we sat in a huge circle at Don Keitel's house outside in his driveway, all 20 boys in the troop, and they're all older than me. I was the little shrimpo, and I already was intimidated, but I was even more intimidated because they all had these big, beautiful, metal-framed backpacks. They were all ready for the overnight, and pup tents, and eating utensils. I was so embarrassed because I didn't have anything. I was totally unprepared. And Don Keitel went around the entire circle asking everybody to show him everything he had. And then he approved it. Then he got to me and I said, well, I've got this, which is the pack I take to school. And Don just looked at me in front of everybody and he said, that's hardly acceptable. Well, thanks a lot, Don. Thank you for pointing that out like I didn't already know, like I didn't already like feel humiliated. I felt terrible. I ran home. I knew I had to get my father to take me out and buy like a proper backpack and sleeping bag and pup tent. But my father, he was laying on my parents' bed watching a movie. This is how he watched movies. What is it? Oh, hey, John, how you doing, kid? What's going on? Hi, Daddy. Can you take me to get a backpack, and I have to get a pup tent and a bunch of other stuff for a camping trip. Oh, yeah, sure, John. Oh, sure. First thing tomorrow. We'll do it first thing tomorrow. Well, I leave at like 7 o'clock tomorrow. So can we go tonight? Tonight? John, it's 8 o'clock. And by God, he got on the phone and he found out that Big Five Sporting Goods was open till 8:30. And we got in that little green roadster and raced to Big Five. And it was 8:30 when we got there, but he stuck his foot in the door and he just pushed his way and he said, this will take 2 seconds. We just need to get the kids some camping gear, backpack. Oh, this will perfect. Oh yeah, we'll do that. Oh, this is great. Right. And in 5 minutes, I was all set. He was great that way. I love my daddy. When push came to shove, when you really needed him, he was there for you. He actually made it happen. So my backpack, of course, was huge on me and I could just barely walk with it. It was so heavy, but I was all set the next morning and my ride came up, right? And it picked me up and they drove me up to Camp Tamarancho. And it still looked every bit as beautiful. It actually been rained on, so there were flowers that were beginning to bloom. It was gorgeous. But then I saw that our campsite, because we were the youngest troop, was the farthest away. And I trudged all the way to our campsite. I didn't think I was going to make it, but when I got there, I set up my tent, my own little pup tent. It was great. It worked. And I went inside and there I was. It was the first home I had all to myself. And I just looked at the view, beautiful Fairfax all around me. It was great. And then my friend Eric and I, we left our backpacks and our tents and we went down to the main part of the camp. Now it was all set up so that you could get merit badges. That's what scouts are all about. So there are all these stations that you could visit that would help you get started on your merit badges. So we decided to go look at the physical fitness thing, but it was all these like huge obstacle things, like those zip lines that go over water and mud. They looked like really hard to do. And we were tiny. We were like the smallest scouts. It was incredible. There were these walls that you had to climb up and trees. And then these big butch 14-year-olds. 14-year-olds then were like the butches. They were all so big and muscular. And they were at the obstacle course doing things like it's like scary. It's like I couldn't do that. I was terrified. So we left the obstacle course and we went over to the first aid station where we could learn about first aid, maybe get a first aid merit badge. And there were all these like really, really attractive 14-year-olds, really, really cute guys. And I didn't even know what my feelings were. I was just like this little closeted 11-year-old gay boy. I had no idea I was even like that way until I saw these guys. And they're just laying on the ground like this. And we're supposed to go up and give them mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. I was like, no way. I'm going to get totally overexcited and embarrass myself. That's terrifying. I'd rather be like, than kiss some guy. The 14-year-olds were really intimidating. So Eric and I spent the whole morning making lanyards. 3 hours making lanyards. Mine weren't very good. They kind of twisted. They weren't, and the colors weren't, I didn't give my lanyards to anybody. It's kind of a wasted morning. And then we were headed back to our campsite to eat a meal. And we saw some older scouts, like in their 40s. And I didn't even know that a scout could be 40 years old, but I immediately realized what they were, these older scouts, because two of my cousins had Down syndrome. And I realized that these guys had Down syndrome too. But some of the other campers in my troop, they'd never seen anybody with Down syndrome like me. So they started giggling. And Don heard them. The company said, stop that. Stop it. Show some respect. Those guys have more wisdom, more life experience, more know-how than you'll ever have. Show some respect. And I thought, well, no, that's good. I mean, he nipped it in the bud. They shouldn't be laughing at other people. But I was like, what? More wisdom, more life experience. I mean, what does that mean? I was like, how is that helpful? That was just like wrong, right? We would all have life experience. It was like weird. But even weirder was that night, we all had to go to this huge gathering. It was very dark. It was in the middle of the camp. There was a huge circle of all the kids from all the troops in Marin County. And we were standing there and nobody told us what was going on. Nobody had said anything. And we're all standing there in this huge circle. And then stepping into the middle of the circle came this 14-year-old boy, really like a perfect 14-year-old boy in the skimpiest little loincloth you've ever seen. I was like, what? And he was wearing this big headdress, but it was made of plastic. So I thought it looked really cheesy. He didn't look like an indigenous person, but I think he was trying to. And somebody else was beating drums. And they walked in a circle doing this chant. I thought, what is going on? Nobody told us. And then he walked up to some random boy, this guy with the big headdress, and he put his hands on the boy's shoulders and he went like this. And then they led that boy off into the woods. I was like, oh my God, what happens in the woods? This is totally freaky. Now, some of the other kids around me, like they were all from my troop. Nobody had told us what was going on. So some of them started giggling, right? Just nervous, giggling. And all of a sudden, Mr. Rosen grabbed one of the gigglers on the shoulders and yanked him out of the circle. I was like, where'd that guy go? And then another giggler on my right. Well, Don came up to him, put his hands on his shoulders and yanked him out of the circle. I was like, oh my God. I mean, I'm either going to get taken off in the woods by this guy in the creepy headdress and the loincloth, or I'm going to get yanked by Mr. Rosen or Don. And what do they do? Beating them? What goes on in the woods? I was like horrified. When it was all over, they took us back to our campsite. And Don said, I'm so disappointed in you guys laughing. That was the Order of the Arrow. That is a sacred event for Boy Scouts. I am so disappointed in you. But nobody had told us that. It's just this weird thing started happening. And people were being taken off in the woods and yanked out of the circle. I was like, why wasn't anything explained to us? Next morning, I got up. It was beautiful. I stretched. The smell of the tree sap in my nostrils. I could hear birds chirping. I could smell the dirt and the leaves. It was a magical place. And then Don showed up and he was angry again. Somebody dumped oatmeal. Somebody from this troop dumped oatmeal into the water tank. That huge tank is going to have to be drained, cleaned, and sanitized because somebody in this troop fouled it. I was like, what? That water tank was about the size of one of those gas tanks in Richmond. It was huge. Nobody was going to like empty that thing and sanitize it. It was like, what? Everything Don said was like so exaggerated. It was ridiculous. I was like, okay, whatever. So now it was time to break camp and we had to hike home. I've been told about this hike, but everybody said it's easy. We're just hiking from Fairfax to Ross. So I got my backpack on. Oh, it was actually pretty heavy with all my stuff for the weekend. It was the smallest backpack that Big Five sold, but it was huge. It loomed above me. And then we walked down out of Camp Tamarancho. That was all downhill. That was okay. It was a dirt road. It was hard to breathe. Then we walked through Fairfax and the sun was really beating down. And then we walked out to Deer Park. And then we had to start walking uphill back to Ross. And by the time we were coming down the other side, I was totally wiped out. I could barely put one foot in front of the other. My pack loomed above me. I was way behind everybody else, but I was still stumbling forward. I was like, well, as long as I'm heading in the right direction, it's okay. And then Don appeared beside me. He'd fallen back with me and he'd said, keep up, come on, keep up. Yes, Mr. Keitel. Yes, Mr. Keitel. Pick up your feet. You're raising too much dust. The dust, pick up your feet. Yeah. Yes, Mr. Keitel. I'm fine. Just go on ahead. I'll catch up. I know where I live. I can get home all right. I'm fine. But he wasn't satisfied with that. He put his hand on my backpack and he lifted it off my back and hoisted it up over his head like this. He said, I'll carry your backpack, but you got to do me a favor. While we're walking, you got to pick up all this trash, okay? I was like, why does he just let me walk home with my backpack? I could have made it. He wanted me to keep up the pace. So he got me to the front of the line where everybody could see me without my backpack, him holding it, and he pointed out the trash for me to pick up. It looked like this. And I was like scrambling around in front of the troop, picking up trash all the way home. Oh my God, it was so embarrassing. When we got to the bottom of my lane, he handed me my backpack. Thank you, Mr. Keitel. Thank you. He didn't say a word. He just walked off to his house with Jan. And then I walked up my lane. And I got to the top of my lane. I walked in my house. I walked into the living room and there was my mommy. Jono, don't you look cute all sweaty? You're just a sweaty. You're a sweater. Like a little pullover sweater. You're adorable. Hey, go upstairs and change because we're going to go out and have a nice dinner. Yeah, upstairs. Run, scoot. So I went upstairs and I took off my backpack and I thought, what bullshit. What complete bullshit. I was pissed off. Don had been no help all weekend. He'd been chewing us out for things he never told us about, or he got the information wrong, or he exaggerated stuff, and then he tried to humiliate me on the way back. I was pissed off. It's probably the first adult I ever really hated. I'll tell you something though. I didn't get bullied. Nobody said a word. Nobody made fun of me. And I'll tell you why. If you grow up wealthy or upper middle class, you're kind of protected from bullying. There isn't as much of it. You see, my father was a very successful attorney, and nobody's gonna let their kid bully my father's son because he's afraid he's gonna end up in court. So, when everybody's father is a successful professional, it keeps all the kids in line. There was very little bullying in my school. Nobody could afford to do it. Also, there was my mother who'd turn up at your doorstep and say, excuse me, but I understand your son was bullying my Jono. How dare you? How dare you? do you know who my husband is? Yeah, that's him. You want to end up in court? Keep bullying him. Leave my Jono alone. You come and answer to me. Yeah. So I was lucky that way. I grew up without a lot of bullying. So my next assignment, it was to come up with a product and sell it. Now remember my notes. I had to work on eye contact, right? I had to have good props. They couldn't just be like binder paper, right? And I had to engage the audience. I had to excite them. I kept thinking of Pamela and her rock fudge. God. Well, that was the way to do a presentation. Lots of enthusiasm, lots of energy. But what was I going to sell? I had no idea. And then I had an idea. I knew what I would sell. I was all set. I knew exactly what I would sell. So a Monday later, I went into school and I set up all my props because I was getting ready for my presentation. And then Mr. Scholl said, and he gave me the signal, and it was my turn to give my presentation. And I began with confetti and flags. Da 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 da. Welcome everybody, and boy, have we got a treat for you. We've got the best, the tastiest, the most delicious dessert you can imagine. Yes, it's Pam's Rock Fudge. We want you to buy Pam's Rock Fudge. It's the best rock fudge going. Why? Because we use only the best baking soda and we use it in exactly the right amounts. Now, you see, if you use too much baking soda, your rock fudge is going to be too light. What'll happen to it? I'll show you what'll happen to it. It'll just float away. Your rock fudge will float away. You won't even be able to keep it down. It'll just float away. Now, if you use too little of the baking soda, what happens to your rock fudge? It just becomes heavy like real rocks. Not too much, not too little. Pam's Rock Fudge uses exactly the right amount. That makes it light, airy, delicious, and it's full of sugar. Here, I've got some samples. They're so light and airy, they look like crackers. Here, everybody can have one. Here. Eat a rock fudge. Enjoy a rock fudge. It's Pam's Rock Fudge. Yeah. Da 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 da. Oh, incidentally, last week I was here showing you how to make airplanes, and I kind of cheated you because I didn't actually take you through the process of making one yourself. So let's make an airplane together. Now I want you all to get a nice piece of paper, no binder paper. Hey. No binder paper, none. That's right, a nice piece of paper. Now we're going to very slowly fold it. So watch my instructions because it's very difficult. And here we go, folding the paper into a paper airplane. Great, and now it can fly, an F-16 wad. Throw your paper airplanes, throw them. That's right. Da 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 da. It was probably the only time I ever saw Mr. Scholl laugh out loud. He actually bent over like this. He was happy. I'd followed every note. I pulled off my second presentation. I went right up to him afterwards and I said, Mr. Scholl, did I establish eye contact? Did I have the eye contact of the audience? He said, you stared at me the whole time from the very beginning, except twice. You looked at Pamela to make sure she was laughing too. Good work. Now, before I get back to the Boy Scouts and my adventures with the Boy Scouts, I want to address what a lot of you might be thinking, like, where is he going with this? Because in February of 2020, the Boy Scouts of America filed for bankruptcy. Why? Because 82,000 cases have been brought against them for child molestation by scoutmasters. Now, if they declared bankruptcy, then a bankruptcy court could put a bar on further cases brought against them. There'd be a time limit, a statute of limitations on how many more cases could be brought against them. Also, it would activate their insurance company in special ways. So bankruptcy was going to save the Boy Scouts of America. It had been revealed that there was a perversion list, a list of perverts, as they called them in the 1930s, scoutmasters who molested boys, raped them. The list had been started in the 1930s and it extended all the way up to the present, to February 2020. And a lot of the names on the list had never been given to the police department, ever. In other words, it was handled internally. They fired the scoutmaster, told him he couldn't be a scoutmaster of that troop anymore, and many of those scoutmasters, hundreds of them, moved to other parts of the country, became scoutmasters of other troops, and molested more boys. This went on and on and on, the perversion list. Now, this never happened to me. I was never molested. Nobody touched me inappropriately. Nothing like that happened to me. But I will come back to this because I think this whole event illuminates some of my experiences with Scouts. The stories are heartbreaking. There's a podcast, The Daily, as you know, on the New York Times, and one of them is given over to a boy, I'll call him Martin, who talks about how he was raped by his scoutmaster, Tony, for 6 years. He was 11 years old, same age I was when I joined Scouts. He was in his tent, which he shared with Tony. What? And Tony began raping him when he was 11. He continued to rape him for years until finally Martin left Scouts. But he still went out and did things with Tony. He told nobody about it. Tony threatened him, said, you know, if you do, I'm going to get revenge. If you do, nobody will believe you. If you do, people will think bad things about you. He kept seeing Tony. He was attached to Tony. It was like the Stockholm syndrome. In some sick way, he was connected to Tony, who continued to have sex with him, continued to rape him. And finally, when Martin was 17, Tony said, you know what? I'm going to give your name to some of my friends and they'll pay you for sex. Sounds great, huh? And Martin realized that to Tony, he was nothing other than an object, a commodity. And he said, that's it. Do what you want to me. I don't want to see you anymore. And he stopped seeing Tony, and Tony did nothing. And Martin said nothing about it for 20 years. And the only reason he came forth and told his whole story was because his children, his boys, had started going into Scouts. They were becoming Scouts themselves, and he wanted it stopped. And as I say, none of this happened to me, but I will come back to it because I think it's a very interesting aspect of Scouting. Well, we're having our weekly Scout meetings, and Don had started talking about a break activity, which would be going up to Marin Sierra. Now, I want all of you to think about this. It's a terrific place in the Sierras. There's swimming and hiking and lots of adventure activities. So I hope you can all join us. But I need to know tonight who is thinking of coming, who has the idea that they'd like to join us. Now, why would I go on this? I was so down on Don. I was so sick of his nonsense. Why would I even go on this thing, right? I mean, why would I do that? But how could I help it? I love the outdoors. Scouts was getting me out more. I love the adventure. I love seeing California and these beautiful places. So who here tonight thinks that they're going to come with us on the break to Marin Sierra? And I raised my hand with almost everybody else. And then Don said, okay, good. Now I just want you all to know that from the parking area to the campsite is a 1 mile hike. Now you're going to have lots of packing, right? Your packs are going to be very, very heavy because you're going to need to take stuff for a week, and it's 1 mile. And he said it right to me. Like I was incapable of walking a mile. And I'm like, thanks, Don. Once again, bingo. Thank you for pointing out to everybody that you took my backpack away and they think I can't walk. Anyway, I went home and I was kind of nervous about it for months. And finally the day was approaching and It was the day before I was supposed to go to Marin Sierra, and I packed my bag. A week's worth of stuff. Oh my God, my backpack was so heavy. Oh, I couldn't believe it. I was still tiny. I'd had no growing spurts, none since I was like a 2-year-old. It loomed above me. As I stood in my room, I had this heavy backpack on. It was digging into my shoulders. And I got depressed. And I went over to the wall, and I just leaned my head against the wall. And I was crying in my room. Well, my mommy heard me, and she came into my room. Jono, what's wrong? What's wrong, Jono Pano? Oh, Jono, of course you can walk a mile with that backpack. Of course you can. You know what we can do? We can have a practice. We'll practice. We'll have you walk around the house. How about that? Now, you see, I think if you walk around the house 8 times, that's a mile. So come on downstairs. Now, I'm just going to sit here in the patio, and I'll sit here, and I'll watch you walk around, and I'll count every time you pass. And we're going to make sure, the 2 of us, we're going to make sure that you can walk a mile. Okay, I'm going to put on Engelbert Humperdinck. You like him, don't you? Okay, here we go. All right, go ahead, Jono. Walk around the house. I can't wait a moment more. Tell me quando. 1, go, Jono, go, Jono. I can't wait a moment more. Tell me quando. 2, good work, Jono. Keep going, Jono. I can't wait a moment more. Tell me quando. 3, go, Jono, my hero, Jono. Well, that was her experience of it. This was mine. I can't wait a moment more. Tell me quando. 4. I can't wait a moment more. Tell me quando. 5, go, Jono. I can't wait a moment more. 6, tell me. 7, quando. 8, Jono, you did it. Jono Pano, you did it. That was wonderful. Jono, look at you. You were so cute walking around the house. I'm so proud of you, Jono. Oh, you were wonderful. You are all set. You're going to have no trouble tomorrow. Bravo. Bravo, Jono. Bravo. Now come on down to dinner. It's dinner time. I never took my backpack off. I ate dinner with my backpack on. I kept it on until I went to bed. I didn't want to lose the feel of having that huge backpack on my back because I knew if I did that I wouldn't be ready for tomorrow. And at 7 o'clock in the morning, my carpool came up and I got in the back. I sat in the back seat and we drove up to Marin Sierra Boy Scout camp. And I was in the back with my backpack. 1 mile, I did it. I went around the house. I just have to go 1 mile with my backpack, 1 mile. And we got there and it was beautiful. It was even more beautiful than Camp Tamarancho. The redwood trees were taller. There were pines. Everything was blowing in a breeze. There was this beautiful lake that you could swim in called Lake Chubb. It was gorgeous. I could smell the pine needles in my nose. It was incredible. I loved it. And I looked at a sign, and Don hadn't lied. The sign said 1 mile to the campsites. 1 mile, straight uphill. Don hadn't said that. He hadn't said it was straight uphill. It was straight uphill. I was like, oh my God, And then the breeze stopped and the sun started beating down. I was Lawrence of Arabia. I was stumbling across the Nefud desert. It was horrifying. No, no. You know what got me through? Kenrick Lee. That's his real name. One of the best guys ever. He had this little transistor radio and he was listening to KGO radio news. And he was telling us all what the news was, blah, 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 blah. And it totally distracted me. And I'm convinced he did it deliberately to take my mind off that horrifying Everest I had to go on. And halfway up, Kenrick announced Nixon resigned. I was a young Republican, but I thought, good. I hate Nixon. I don't know why, but I hate him. And I stumbled into our campsite. I made it. And it was the most adorable campsite ever. It had a great view of all these rocks and mountains and this clear blue sky. It was magnificent. And my buddy Eric Goodfield and I, we took off our backpacks. We put on our swimsuits and we ran down to Lake Chubb because we were going to go swimming in Lake Chubb. And there was one of those 14-year-old, really intimidating butch scout guys. He was one of the lifeguards. He said, hey, what do you guys want to do? Oh, we want to go swimming. We want to go swimming in Lake Chubb, Lake Chubb. Yeah, okay, well, here's how you do it. You get a tag and you write your name on it. And then you put the tag up on this bulletin board. And that way we know you're in the water, right? And if you drown, we'll know who's drowned because we won't see anybody in the water, but we'll see your name up there on the board. Then we can tell your parents, okay? So you can't go in the water unless your name is on the board. We need that information in case you drown, okay? Make sense? Yeah, it makes sense. Okay, so put your tags on the board. So we write our names on the tags and we put them on the bulletin board and we swam. And we were so excited. We were 11, but we were acting like 2-year-olds. We're like, We were so silly. We were just thrilled to be there. We made it. We made the hike and it was wonderful. And the water felt great. There were fish that we could see with us swimming and we just splashing around. Yeah! And suddenly we realized that 14-year-old lifeguard was staring at us. You guys all right? Yeah, we're fine. We're just fooling around. Okay. And he was like annoyed. Like we were embarrassing him. Oh, phooey, it was fun. So we splashed and splashed and splashed in Lake Chubb with 2 B's. And then we got out and we went over to the bulletin board and our tags weren't there. They weren't on the board. And that lifeguard walked up, he said, yeah, where are your tags? Well, we put them up there, you saw us. I didn't see that. I don't see your tags. You know what the punishment is for not leaving your tags on the board? You have to haul sand. You see that beach over there? You have to haul buckets of sand from that beach to this beach. 8 trips. Here are the buckets. Go on. Get going. What? Oh, God. I walked all the way to the other side of Lake Chubb. We dug up these huge buckets of sand. I could barely carry them. The buckets cut into my hands. They hurt. We walked all the way back. It took us half an hour. What did happen? We put our tags up. We poured out the buckets. I was in tears. We dumped the buckets. And then we looked up and the lifeguard was standing above us and he said, yeah, I found the tags. It must have blown off the bulletin board. That's okay. You don't have to haul any more buckets. What? I mean, really? All right, I got it. So he thought that we were embarrassing and making him look foolish as the lifeguard of these babies. So he took down our tags and punished us. And he wanted us to know that. So he told us when it was done that, oh, they'd blown off. No way. Then I thought, okay, that's what this place is like, huh? There's this book called The Good Soldier Schweik. And it's about this guy who's in the Austrian army during World War I. And he survives all these awful German officers because he just hides from them. He keeps a low profile. He's never around when they're around. And when he is, by accident, he just acts stupid like, oh, I'm sorry. Oh, no, I didn't hear that order. Sorry. He just plays dumb the whole time. And I thought, okay, That's the best solution to scouts. Isolation. Don't be around anybody ever, because the authority people are like, fortunately, our campsite was wonderful. It was out in the middle of nowhere. It was totally isolated. And I loved everybody in my little camping troop. Jan, yeah, Jan Keidel was one of them. My bud was back again. And the weird thing was, is even though his son was there, he never came around. Don Keidel never came around to check up on us, but that was fine because we had the best time. We went rock climbing. We totally avoided all the other campers. And we did things like run around naked. You know, it's just like silly kids running around naked. And we had like poopy ceremonies. I'm not going to tell you about those. They were, you know, but we did poopy ceremonies. We loved them. And we made our own food. They delivered food to us every morning and we cooked it up ourselves. We ate really healthy. And it was just special being with my friends, singing songs. Oh, they taught us this song at the huge campfire, and we sat around our little tiny campfire one night singing it. You see, you took somebody's name and you did something silly with it. Like if somebody's name was Lee, you'd go, it's Lee, 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 climbing up a tree in the store, in the store. But we did, you know, we were like, it's John, 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 crapping on the John in the store, in the store. Oh, one kid's name was Daryl. And Eric came up with, this was the best. It's Daryl, 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 wearing no apparel in the store, in the store. We were just silly. And we didn't get any merit badges. And one night, all the tents were in a circle and we shined all of our flashlights into the center. And this kid Smollett, who I kind of had a crush on, although I didn't even know what a crush was, but I sort of had a crush on him. But he went into the center of the circle naked and he put on what he called the lewd, crude, nude dude show. It was like, it was naughty. I mean, you know, we didn't even know what we were doing. It was just like naked, but he did things like, and we all like shining flashlights on him, laughing, and nobody even cared or heard. It was magical. One of the best weeks of my 11 years. And then on the third to last day, Don Keidel showed up and said, we're going on an overnight. We're going to be hiking 7 miles each way. So pack your bags, get ready. It's going to be a long trip. 7 miles, he said to me, of course. So I packed my bag. I tried to pack it light because I knew that a Jeep was going to take most of the stuff. What would I need? The main thing I wanted to take was a bathing suit because we're going to some place called Lake Spalding. But I was worried about the mountains because I knew there were a lot of mountains between us and Lake Spalding. But it was 7 miles around the mountains. It was great. We hardly went up and down at all. And as we approached Lake Spalding, I saw it. It was so beautiful. This big granite mountain looming in front of me. It was gorgeous. And then these granite escarpments going down into this huge granite quarry, an old quarry that had been flooded with crystal clear water. And we swam out into the middle of Lake Spalding, and you could see tree stumps down below you, but 20 feet below you, it was so clear. You could never even swim down to them, but you could see them. The water felt incredible. And I brought my swimsuit. So, you know, I swam my swimsuit, but a lot of the boys, especially some of the older ones, they just swam naked. And I was like, oh my God, it was like the most exciting, you know, 20 minutes of my 11 years. It was like, oh my God, I couldn't believe it. All these like, you know, flapping and diving, and it was incredible. And then that night, we all ran to the stars and looked up. There wasn't a light to distract us, nothing to diminish the stars. And we looked at the constellations. And even Don was relaxed. He was just enjoying it. Lake Spalding. Next morning, we got up and we put our backpacks on. I thought, well, I can do this. That was easy. But unfortunately, Mr. Rosen said, I know a shortcut. Now, a shortcut out there means not going around the mountains, but going over them. I'm like, oh no. And sure enough, he led us up a bunch of mountains, up and down, up and down. It was insane. Fortunately, Kenrick kept telling me KGO News. That was good. You know, Nixon and stuff. And we went up and down, up and down, up and down. And finally, when we got back to the main camp, Marin Sierra, some ass-lick kid said, thanks, Mr. Rosen. Thanks for finding the shortcut home. Ugh. I don't know who who I hated more, Mr. Rosen or Don. Anyway, the last day of camp was really special. They had every year what was called the Battle of Lake Chubb. And that's where all of the different troops from different parts of California would have a huge battle on the water. And what they did was they put one troop each into a canoe. So we have our own canoe, the Marin canoe. And I was in it. I was one of the guys. And what you would do is you'd go around the lake and try and sink the other canoes, right? We're all wearing life jackets, so it was safe. And we're all like splashing water in each other's canoes. Everybody's screaming. It was wild fun. You know what though? Dan Draper, the great Dan Draper, he was in the back of our canoe and he had this coffee can and he just kept filling it with water and dumping it into the other boats. So while everybody else was screaming and having fun and splashing, he was just dumping water into the other boats. And one after another, they sank, except ours. Ours stayed afloat. And I was part of the victorious team. I won the Battle of Lake Chubb. It has been an incredible week. Once I figured out the swing of things, right? And people like Kenrick and Eric helping to distract me from stuff, it was an incredible week. I loved it. It was magic. You know, I had to figure out how scouts worked. Like, whoever thought that being ignored was the best thing ever if you were a scout? Getting away from authority was the best thing ever if you were a scout. Trying to do nothing except have fun was the best thing ever if you were a scout. Anyway, it was back to school. And when I was back in school, there was one more significant incident. You see, one day, Mr. Scholl started yelling at this boy that I'd fallen in love with, Greg. I had such a crush on all these guys, but I didn't even know that they were crushes because I didn't know I was gay. I was just like, I just had crushes all over the place. And one guy I had a crush on was Greg. And Mr. Scholl was so annoyed with him because he wouldn't shut up. And Mr. Scholl said, Greg, shut up, shut up. And I would not take that. I would not have Mr. Scholl yelling at my boyfriend. So I just stared at Mr. Scholl. And he said, and what are you looking at? You. Okay, John, come outside. Come outside. Everybody behave. Quiet while I'm out here. Come on, John. He took me into the hall and he said, John, what's wrong? I don't like you yelling at Greg. Greg's my friend. You should be yelling at him. I don't like it when you yell at Greg. You're always yelling at Greg. Well, I'm not always yelling at Greg, John. I yell at him when he misbehaves. You know that. Okay? Look, why don't you go to the bathroom and wash your face? And when you're ready to come back into class, come back. Okay? John, it's going to be fine. It really is. And he went back in the classroom. He understood. He understood what was going on. He didn't make a big deal out of it. He just dealt with it. I went to the bathroom. I washed my face. I calmed down. I walked back into the room with my dignity intact. He handled it outside. I drifted away from Scouts. I don't know why. I don't know. I loved the outdoors. I loved all that about it, but I hated all the ambition, all the motivation. And I also hated that Don was always like weird about stuff. I couldn't figure him out. And I just never felt comfortable. I was so small and I wasn't growing, and it was just hard for me to do a lot of the things. But I really missed the outdoors. One day I was walking home with Jan, and suddenly there was Jan's father in front of us, Don, Keidel, right in front of us, standing there. I don't know where he came from. And he said, Jan, I'll see you at the troop meeting tonight. I hope you're prepared. And John, you're welcome to come if you want to. And I said, thanks. Sure, thanks. I think he was just being nice. At least that's what I told myself at the time. Like, why would he want me there? But when I was preparing this piece, I thought back to that incident, and I think that people were leaving the troop. Like, our town really wasn't a Boy Scout town, and he was losing scouts. The troop was disintegrating. I think he really did want me to come to the meeting. That was the last time I saw him. The next I heard about him, he was dead. Don Keidel had been doing a triathlon. He'd run his 26 miles. He dove into a lake. He swam across the lake. He emerged from the lake in his bathing suit, and he had a massive heart attack. He died right there. It was the first letter of commiseration I ever wrote. I wrote to Jan. I said, I feel terrible. I feel bad. You're a wonderful son, Jan. I hope your father is so proud of you. With love, John. But it was a lie. Like Morales in A Chorus Line about Mr. Clark. The reason I felt nothing, that was what I felt. I didn't feel anything for Don, and when he died, I just felt nothing. But I didn't pass up the chance to confront my father. You see, I think the problem between my parents was drinking. They were so lovely to us, but with each other, cats and dogs, I think it was because they drank too much. So the day I heard that Don Keidel had died of a heart attack at 45, I went into my parents' bedroom. My father was sitting there watching the football game. Oh, come on, run, don't throw it, run. Run with the ball, don't throw, oh, what an idiot, what a moron. Hey, Jono, how you doing? Yeah, how's it going? You know, Don Keidel died today, and he never had a drink in his life. He never drank, ever. Yeah, well, you see what happened to him. Oh, come on, run with it, run with it. There's no getting around my father. Ruthless logic, that's what always worked for him. You know, I think the thing about my parents was I wanted to adore them. I really did. I just wanted to love them. And I think all they really wanted was to be liked. I don't think they felt like they were all that special, which is too bad because I thought they were completely unique. And every time I adored them, they responded. But it didn't come naturally to them to be adored. Don, on the other hand, he wanted us all to admire him. He wanted us to worship him. And the harder he tried, the less we did. I did kind of respect him in a way, but his being so demanding and so petty about stuff, it kind of pushed me away. Mr. Shaw, on the other hand, he turned out to be my hero. The eraser thrower, he figured out everything. He gave me all that great feedback. That was the first time I'd ever really acted. And he gave me all that great feedback. It kind of launched my love of theater. And he knew what was going on to me. You want to know how he knew? Years later, I put on this big play about gays in the military. And I was in my 30s. And one day in the mail, I got an envelope. It had come to the theater. And I opened it up and it was from Mr. Shaw. And the note said, I was there last night with my husband. I really appreciated your words. He remembered me. He had a husband. The whole time he'd been gay. You know, it's funny, but I think a lot about the Scouts. 82,000 kids coming forward. Cases, molestation. That's 10 times the number in the United States of kids who've come against the Catholic Church for the same thing. What's going on? And I'll tell you something. What's the difference between my dad and Mr. Shaw and the Scouts? What's the difference? Well, the Scouts, it's not necessary. It's not It's not core. It's not a real thing. I mean, school is necessary, and you're not having overnights at school, and the teacher is there with other teachers in the next room. It's structured. The teacher is accredited. And your father, of course, he's your father. He's supposed to be hanging out with you, right? But scouts, suddenly you're off in the woods with these guys. And they can do and say anything. And Don was not a child molester at all, but he had this weird sense of things. And there we were, under his control the whole time. It's kind of weird. He could have done anything. Mr. Rosen could have done anything. And they're not accredited at all. They're Eagle Scouts, but they haven't been trained to do this thing. They're not licensed by the government. I don't care about their charter with Congress. They've only been around since 1910. What are they? They're not paid. And when people do something as volunteers, I think it's dangerous, right? Because they want something. All Don wanted was to be admired. But what if he wanted something else, right? And what can we do to defend ourselves? And here's the other thing about Scouts. It has always had a weird thing about sexuality. Like only in 2015 did they let gay boys in. And then they said, but Scouts don't have sex. It's like, what? And then in 2017, they finally let girls in. They've always had this weird thing about gender and sexuality, always. What does that sound like? The Catholic Church. And when people live under this cloud of repression of no, 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 what does it do to them? It messes with their brains. It makes them think that they have to act out in some inappropriate way to express themselves within all of this enclosure, all of this repression. I think the Scouts is an extremely challenged institution. You know, this bankruptcy stuff is meant to protect their assets, and they've got some incredible assets. One thing they have a lot of, people don't know this, is a lot of the very expensive fine art. Because who was their artist but Norman Rockwell? Look at these pictures. I love Norman Rockwell. I love him. Nobody put more narrative into a single picture, but there's something very weird about his scouting pictures. Look at this. Pulling them up with smiles. That never happened in my troop. And there's something very patriotic about him too. I mean, of course he was patriotic, but there's something kind of fascistic about some of these things. They're very 30s, 40s in a fascism way. Look at these things. Looking off into the future, like a bunch of Hitler youth. Yeah, that's when they came about. That's when they reached their pinnacle about the same time as the Hitler youth. These guys just look like they're in the army. They have all these original prints, huge holdings. 1910, the year they were founded. It'll be interesting to see how these lawsuits come out. There was a guy who was molested in Marin. It's in the Marin IJ. He talks about being molested by a scoutmaster in Marin. I found that online. There are probably a lot of others, but that's one that I found. I also found the obituary of the man who raised Don Keidel. He was a scoutmaster. He raised Don. Don came from a difficult household. There was a lot of drinking in it. He lived in Stinson Beach. And this guy took him in when he was a young man and raised him and eventually adopted him. Don always spoke with him with the utmost respect, and so did Jan. This guy who raised Don was single. He gave his life to scouting. And I wonder, is scouting necessary? Is that really the only way that we can get out? And right now, Camp Tamarancho is still owned by the local scouts, which are not being impacted by all these lawsuits because the lawsuits are being brought against the Boy Scouts of America, the national organization. And they've been very specific about how they only control the national entities, that the locals get to hang on to their stuff. And so many kids have been molested. What's going to happen? The lawyers all say the same things, and the kids say the same things too. The scouts are only going to feel it if money is involved, if they lose billions. And the national organization is worth 1 to 10 billion, but the local organizations, can you imagine what that real estate is worth in Marin? And my little glimpse of scouting, it gave me profound doubt. Parenting worked for me, school worked for me, but scouting, even without edging into molestation, it just seemed like empowering the wrong parts of boys and men. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm John Fisher, and this has been BS, My Adventures in the Boy Scouts. You're a wonderful audience. I've been putting on shelter-in-place solo performances since the beginning, way back in March of 2020. This is my 49th presentation. We haven't missed a single week. So thank you so much for being here with us. This is a free program, and as I'm sure you can imagine, Theater Rhinoceros is struggling in these difficult COVID-19 times. If you'd like to make a donation to our theater to support this programming and all of our programming, you can send a check to me at my COVID-19 work address, John Fisher, Theater Rhinoceros, 91 Central Avenue, Suite number 102, San Francisco, California, 94117, or go online. You'll see all the programs we've got coming up at therhino.org, and you can make a donation by hitting the donation button online. We have a reading series continues coming up with a brand new and very exciting play in March. Check that out. And then we have a whole bunch of spring activities, a benefit performance, which is free to attend, but we hope you make a donation. We have a solo cabaret performance coming up in May and a whole new play coming up in June. So please join us for the rest of the season. But more than anything, thank you for being such a terrific audience. It was a pleasure performing for you this evening. And good night.